What's up, guys? Welcome to Roensch Capital Charts. Today we're taking a look at Palantir Technologies, ticker symbol PLTR, on a variety of time frames in anticipation of the next trading day, Monday, February 5th. Palantir stock here on Friday up 69 cents, 4%, 4.25% approximately. Now, we have seen a bit of a pump now here. A little bit later in the after hours, we're up another, you just want to guesstimate here, about another 1.15% in the after hours. Listen, as always, take after hours movement with a grain of salt. The reason why, take a look at that volume. Volume very, very low. Okay, when the volume's that low, even if it's in our favor, even if it supports our bias, we have to take it with a grain of salt. Now, here on Palantir today, one thing I do want to show you guys, throughout the day, we did see some half-decent potential scalp setups, okay, from a variety of short and long. Personally, a little bit too sloppy for me, but I'm sure there were plenty of traders trading Palantir intraday today. For more on that, take a look at the link in the pinned comment, but let's take a look at the 5-minute chart here. I want to look at volume, okay, because volume is kind of like the name of the game here. We see that the stock actually faded pre-market into the open, just dumped off the close a little bit. Okay, we saw that immediate red candle off the open. Saw that immediate red candle off the open, and we pumped from there. I mean, we locked in a bottom within minutes after the opening bell here today, pumping about 5.5% into the close from the low of this morning, and then from the high in after hours, over 7% here on a Friday. Not bad to see if you are a bull. But the volume on the bounce back was actually really interesting. We got a little bit of elevated volume during this midday move to the upside and then a little fade. That kind of ended up being a nothing burger, kind of a net neutral there. But big volume on the pump, also big volume on the fade, and then decent consolidation, increasing volume through that upside move, holding those EMAs, those psychological levels, really nothing more, nothing less than psychological levels here, through until the close. And then holding that move in the after hours, you know, again, take it with a grain of salt. But if you're a bull, better than the alternative. Now let's get a little bit more context here by looking at the 30-minute chart, okay? This is where we start to get some really good self-fulfilling prophecy technical areas to watch as we head into Monday that a lot of other traders and institutions are going to be paying attention to as well. Here on the 30-minute, I like to utilize the gray line, that's the 200 period, and the white line, that's the 50 period. By the way, you might see in chat rooms or something over the weekend that this is highly meaningful. For me, not really. It's a psychological aspect more than anything. The crossovers on any time frame, even the daily, the death cross, the golden cross, for me, I believe that they're overhyped. I look at these levels as psychological levels with expected increased trading volume around those areas, and the expectation that there's going to be some decision making around those areas. Again, you know, the concept of them being a self-fulfilling prophecy is just that. Now understand that since today was such a big move to the upside, again over 4%, from where we currently stand down to that nearest technical level here on the 30-minute chart, at least the one that's the most relevant, it is about a 3% move. Now listen, that's not a huge deal for Palantir. Palantir has been a pretty volatile name as of late, but just understand that the nearest thing that I'm watching is going to be that 50 period as it crosses over here, and then the 200 period below that. But the nearest, you know, is about 3% to the downside away. So it's in the back of my head, but not immediately considering it, assuming this move holds here on Monday. Now, let's go to the 4-hour chart. This is where things get interesting. Of course, you know, we do have earnings again after hours on Monday. So expect some additional volatility from that. That is expected to be a catalyst. We'll talk about the implications of that coming up and then going through that from an options perspective as well here in a second. But here on the 4-hour chart, you can see we are currently testing that 200 period. So that has previously acted as somewhat of a resistance on, you know, a couple of days. Sloppy back here, but fading off that nonetheless. I'm going to be watching that come Monday. Ideally, throughout Monday's trading day, we would pop up above that 200 period and claim it as a support level, at least to have some kind of safety net for earnings, because we know earnings volatility can be relatively difficult to predict. To the downside, you know, that next thing is right around 1680, 1681, that 50 period moving average. But that 200 period is the most immediately relevant one that I'm paying attention to. Now, for earnings, guys, understand that on tech companies, of course, EPS and revenue are highly relevant. But the story that has been the most important, especially this go around with tech earnings, has been guidance. Okay. Pay very close attention to guidance for the current quarter and the next 12 months. Because with even neutral numbers where it's kind of like, yeah, okay, whatever. If Palantir gives great guidance, that changes the whole game. We've seen it time and time again with tech companies in the last 3 to 6 months. So let's now take a look at arguably the most important chart. That's going to be the daily here. You can see that we are still within that channel between the 50-day moving average, that white line, and the 200-day moving average. The 200-day currently sits around 1560, and the 50-day currently sits around 1750. So listen, understand that it's not unlikely that we see a test of one or the other here, given that earnings report, or even leading into it. But of course, if you're bullish, I'm going to lay out all 4 scenarios here. If you're bullish and we see a downside test, you obviously want to see the 200-day hold. That's a really, really huge moving average. You want to see that hold as support. If you're bullish and we see an upside test, you want to see the 50-day around 1750, at least today, Friday, break, retest, and hold as a support level, giving us the opportunity to come up and test that technical area of 18.25. Now, if you're bearish and we see an upside test, obviously you want to see that 50-day moving average reject hard and fade back to the downside. And if you're bearish and we ended up seeing a downside test, but again, understand, we're looking at about an 8% move to the downside there. But if you're bearish and we see a downside test of that 200-day moving average, ideally you'd want to see us break downside. But again, you're asking for a really, really big move out of Palantir, which would require some craziness at earnings. Okay. Let's finish up here by taking a look at the options chain and see what the traders are thinking. Oh man, thinking as we head into Monday. This is an absurd ratio here. A decent sample size. I wouldn't mind seeing more contracts traded, but about 357,000 contracts traded here today. Guys, we are seeing 273,000 calls and 83,000 puts. That is nearly 77% calls here today on the overall ratio. But hang on, I'm not done here. That 0 to 20 delta range, the short-dated, gambly style, those short-term speculators. What are they thinking? What are they betting on as we head into earnings day here on Monday? 79,400 calls in that range, 24,766 puts. Okay, we're seeing approximately 3 times the amount of short-term bullish bias as we are short-term bearish bias. But understand, as always, these options traders can be incorrect. But from the data here, again, this is data. This isn't an opinion. The data is telling us that the options traders are leaning heavily to the bullish side. Listen, hey, if you wouldn't mind before you head out, leave a comment. Let me know what stocks you'd like to see me cover here in the future, even if it is just Palantir. That feedback helps out tremendously, and I'll see you in the next one.